Hi, Nicole Ben Simon here. Almost the end of the year, and I guess this is the perfect time to look back at the year that's passed and look at where you were this time last year, and I guess have a look at the progression that you've made, or the changes that you've made, or the person that you have become as a result of all of these world events that have happened in the past few years. And I guess this is the perfect time to reflect, especially if your life has made a big turn and you've made some huge changes in your life. It's always a good time to really look back and have gratitude for yourself. So have self-gratitude for how far you've come, and even though you may not be exactly where you would like to be, it's always really beneficial to just do a recap of all the things that you have done in order to grow on your spiritual path. And one of the things that really does relate to this is relationships, and how we see them and how we accept them for what they are. Because in our conditioned way of being, we give titles to relationships. You know, it could be friendships, it could be partnerships, it could be marriage, and you know, we are led to believe that if a relationship doesn't last, it's a failure. You know how many people will say, oh yes, it's a failed marriage. And when you actually think about what failed marriage means, it means that nothing about that marriage was useful, which is ridiculous. Because even though a marriage may fail after some number of years, I mean, there have been perhaps children that have come into the world because of the marriage. There could be a lot of healing that has happened because of this partnership. And so to say it's a failed marriage, we need to change our outlook. We need to change our perception of how we see relationships, because we all have soul contracts. And soul contracts, they don't last forever in every instance. And so on a soul level, if you have made a choice to come into the human experience and learn about empowering yourself, then you will have invited in certain people into your life to help you to learn those lessons. And so this came up in a session not long ago with a client, and you know, she was with a man for 20 years, and once we unpacked it in a QHHT session, she really understood that her soul contract with this partner that she thought was going to be her life partner, that it was actually over. It was expired, and she'd given him what he needed and he'd given her what she'd needed, and they parted ways in such a beautiful and graceful way, and that is what has led me to talk about this, because in our society we are led to believe that if a marriage fails, divorce, that, you know, that horrible word. And you know, the thing is that if a partnership isn't working anymore, and if the people in it are no longer growing, then it is actually okay to accept that and to make the next steps towards where you're both going. And if you're not both going in the same direction, there should be no harm, there should be no ill intention, there should be no fighting. You know, the family courts, you know, the lawyers, they're making a field day out of angry people. And we have to look at how we can change that, and how we can be less angry with each other when a relationship ends, and more in acceptance of, okay, I've gotten out of it what I needed, and my partner's gotten out of it what they've needed, and it's time to move on to the next lesson. And so it was interesting, because when we did unpack this particular relationship of 20 years, they had actually both both of them had actually had abusive childhoods. And once we asked the subconscious, what was the reason for that connection, the subconscious said that, they both chose each other as a soul contract to help each other heal from the abuse from their childhood. And so they came together. They had a beautiful 20-year union, and it's come to a point where she came to a session because she wasn't sure where to go from here, because she wants to have children, and she believes she's going to have children with him, but she just didn't know, because she felt that something had shifted in the relationship. And in the session she was shown that actually the karmic contract was over, and they were in each other's lives in order to heal both of their childhood traumas, and that they had done that. They had self-empowered through each other, through that relationship, and learned self-love, and had given each other what they needed to heal their childhood traumas, which were very similar. Obviously they didn't know each other as children, but they had very similar things that they were working on. And the subconscious, she was just told that, you're done. You guys are done. And, it's not hard feelings or anything like that, but it's just, it's done. And she could feel it. That's why she came to a session, because she could feel that she could feel there was an ending, but she didn't know how to, she didn't know exactly what that meant for her. And in the session it came up that, she will not be having children with him because he doesn't really want children, and he hasn't really shared that with her, and that she will be having children with someone else, and that new someone has come into her life, and they're already having, the way everything has shifted when she actually accepted that it was time to let go of something that was no longer helping her to grow, and accepting it, walking away from it, sending love to the other side, sending compassion. We've had a great experience. You go your way with love, I go my way with love. And when she accepted it, she opened herself up to so much more, to a new life lesson, to a new relationship, a new connection. And this is the connection she's having children with. So can you see how important it is for us not to hold on to dear life, even though we know it's not good for us? It's not healthy for us to do that. So karmic contracts, soul contracts, we come here, we come into each other's life at a certain point, we give each other what we need, and then once that job is done, we move on to our next lesson, we move on to our next soul contract. And so I invite you to look at your life and look at where you're still holding on to a toxic relationship, where you're holding on to a version of yourself that no longer is, because you're too scared to see what's next. Because fear is what's holding you back. And yes, change can be scary, but change is growth. And if we stay where we are, we become stagnant, we become lost, we become closed in. And we should be flourishing, we should be learning, we should be growing. And yes, we get knocked down, but we should get ourselves back up and allow ourselves to be shown what's next. And so when we look at relationships, I'd like for you to have more of an open mind about accepting that sometimes when a relationship needs to end or even have a break, don't hold on, because holding on is only going to create more suffering, and just allow nature to take its course. And it doesn't have to be a fight, doesn't have to be an argument. A marriage ending does not have to be a drama. It doesn't, because drama doesn't serve anyone, doesn't serve the parents, doesn't serve the children. See if you can sit with your partner if you're feeling like it is an ending, and a healthy ending, and see if you can be adults about it. Be mature, be aware that you're not making me happy, I'm not making you happy, we've tried, I feel like you're going in a different direction and I'm going in a different direction. And it doesn't need to be seen as a failure. It doesn't need to be seen as something negative. It's just part of life. There are beginnings, there are endings. In life, we are born and then we die. It's just the cycle of life. It's the nature of life. We go into each other's lives and then we go out of each other's lives. You know, we have our school friends and then we finish school, and then we have our university friends. Then we have our friends, you know, who have children at the same time as us. And then we have, you know, whatever it is. Our life is flowing constantly. And so should our friendships. And if something doesn't feel like it's natural and flowing, perhaps it's time to let it go with love and compassion and gratitude for what you have gained from that relationship or from that marriage or from that connection. But just allow life to show you what you need next. And let's try and step out of this ego part of us that wants to know everything, wants to control everything, wants to keep us safe. But it's not really keeping us safe, because it's just keeping us stagnant and boxed in and unhappy. So try and see where you can make some healthy changes in your life and make them come from a self-loving place. Create boundaries that are healthy, so that if you feel like someone is overstepping your boundaries, you feel confident to kindly walk away. Loving ourselves and listening to our body and what we need is probably one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves at this time. And that's why tapping into our intuition is so important, because our inner knowing knows exactly what our story is. It knows exactly what we're here to learn. It knows exactly when we need to complete a cycle and start a new one. And this is what I just love so much about quantum healing hypnosis sessions, is that the ego steps aside and the intuition or the subconscious mind comes in, and it really gives the person a full view, a bird's eye view of their life and the reasons why they've gone through what they've gone through in life. So we do get to really unpack such incredible wisdom from these sessions, and I cannot stress enough how much I believe people should be doing this type of inner work. And I highly recommend that you look up quantum healing hypnosis technique in your area, because this is a process that can only be done face to face. So I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So if you're overseas in another country, you can look up QHHT official, and you can look at the website, and there will be practitioners around your area that you can perhaps choose to do a session, because it will be one of the most valuable things you do for yourself. Because once the ego steps aside, you really get to tap into the wisdom and the answers that are true to you, so that you can follow that path without resistance and get to where you need to be next without beating around the bush, getting straight to where you need to be. So have a look at your relationships and have a look at how you're handling them, and if they're changing, whether you are going, you know, with the change or against the change. And yeah, let's start looking at relationships from a very different perspective. No relationship ending is a failure. A relationship ending is just a relationship ending, and that's okay. So have a beautiful day, and I'll be in touch soon.